What if a single innocent conversation could seal your fate? Christina and Yenel Armal's quiet life took a dark and deadly turn when news of their recent payout got out. What began as a rumor turned into an unimaginable nightmare of brutality. In this video, we'll dive into the tragic story of how a simple piece of information became the trigger for one of the most horrifying crimes in recent memory. Imagine a modest couple living peacefully in a small town. Then, a life-changing sum of money comes into their lives, only to set off a chain reaction of greed and violence. Christina and Yenel Armal, a quiet couple from Kamari, Brazil, fell victim to a horrifying crime after an innocent conversation made their financial gain known. The story takes twists you won't believe, leading to a night of unimaginable cruelty. This isn't your typical true crime story. After hours of digging into every chilling detail, I'm here to share how one rumor turned Christina and Yenel's lives into a nightmare of greed and brutality. Stick around to uncover the tragic twists and the shocking limits of justice in this haunting case. Background: Christina and Yenel Armal. Christina, 44, and Yenel, 57, were a seemingly ordinary couple. They lived a quiet, modest life in Kamari, a small town in Brazil. They had a stable income, a comfortable home, and enough financial security to afford a few luxuries. But in late 2017, Christina received a substantial compensation payout following an accident. This wasn't just a small settlement, it was a life-changing sum of about $225,000. They weren't the kind of people to show off, but money like that doesn't go unnoticed. An innocent conversation between Christina's house cleaner and her grandson set off a chain of events that no one could have foreseen. Christina and Yenel's financial gain quickly became public knowledge and ultimately marked them for tragedy. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was a magnet for danger, and soon it would lead to something far worse than anyone could have imagined. Have you ever thought about how a single conversation could change everything? Imagine a casual chat that, without warning, sets off a chain reaction with unthinkable consequences. It all began with Christina's compensation payout, a significant amount, especially in a town like Kamari. Christina wasn't flaunting her money, she kept it quiet outside her home. But perhaps she discussed it with her husband, Yenel, or maybe it came up with her house cleaner. Whatever the case, one day her cleaner casually mentioned the payout to her grandson in what she thought was an innocent conversation. Little did she know, this small detail would have devastating effects. The cleaner's grandson wasn't about to let that information go to waste. Whether it was his idea or a friend's, they quickly saw an opportunity. Soon, this news became the motive behind a dark plan. The grandson and his friend joined forces, brought in a few others, and together they set a scheme in motion, one that would not only scar Kamari but leave everyone who heard it completely speechless. The stalking phase. Imagine the unsettling feeling of being watched every move, every routine quietly observed without your knowledge. That's what Christina and Yenel unknowingly endured in the days leading up to the attack. After learning about Christina's compensation payout, Daniel Santos, 29, and Carlos Alberto Neres, 25, saw a golden opportunity. Both were familiar with crime, but this time it was about more than a quick score. This was a chance to gain a fortune. What began as a simple robbery plot quickly escalated. Daniel and Carlos recruited 3 teenage boys, transforming a basic plan into a twisted, calculated operation. Instead of rushing in, they took their time, planning each detail with cold precision. They closely observed Christina and Yenel's daily routines, studying each habit, each movement. For days, the gang watched when the couple left their home, when they returned, and when they were most vulnerable. They weren't just waiting for the right moment, they were building a strategy. With every routine memorized, they could pinpoint the exact moment when Christina and Yenel would be truly alone, without any chance of help. Their goal was chillingly simple: break in, take the money, and vanish without a trace. The day of the attack, January 7, 2018, was the final night Christina and Yenel would ever spend together. though they had no idea of the nightmare that lay ahead. It was a quiet evening as the couple relaxed in the comfort of their own home, feeling safe within its walls. But that sense of security was shattered when 5 men stormed in, taking them by surprise. Within moments, Christina and Yenel were bound, overpowered, and then dragged out to the backyard, hidden from view, where no one could hear their desperate cries. As they lay helpless and terrified, the gang's intentions became clear. While one of the intruders kept watch, the others tore through the house, searching for the elusive compensation money. They ransacked every drawer, closet, and cabinet, tearing apart the home in their frantic search. But the money they expected wasn't there, and frustration began to boil over. Enraged, they confronted Christina and Yenel, demanding to know where the safe was hidden. The couple insisted there was no safe and that they didn't have the money. The attackers didn't believe them, and what followed was a night of unimaginable horror, a night of torture. You'd think the horror would end there, right? But for Christina and Yenel, the nightmare was far from over. What the gang unleashed next defied belief. The group's brutality escalated into unimaginable acts of torture, all to force the couple to give up money they didn't have. Christina and Yenel were savagely beaten, and in a disturbing twist, the attackers took turns assaulting Christina while forcing her husband to watch, utterly helpless. Their goal was to break them, hoping that the agony would finally yield some hidden information about the money. But even through unimaginable suffering, Christina and Yenel held on, insisting there was no hidden fortune. Enraged by their resistance, the attackers' cruelty reached shocking new levels. Just when it seemed impossible for the violence to worsen, Christina's arm was torn from her body while she was still alive. In an act of depravity beyond comprehension, one of the attackers even began to consume parts of her arm right in front of the couple. This grotesque display was intended to completely break Yenel, but he could only repeat the truth. There was no money. Yet the horror continued. Christina, still alive, was subjected to further brutality as her body was cut open and her organs removed. By this point, it was clear that this assault wasn't about money anymore. It was pure, unthinkable cruelty. The gang's violence was intended not only to inflict physical pain, but to utterly destroy the couple, stripping away any last shred of hope. In their relentless cruelty, the gang revealed that they had lost all traces of humanity. The end of the nightmare. After hours of torture and suffering, the horror was finally nearing its tragic end, but not before one last unspeakable act. When Christina could no longer endure anymore, the gang took her life in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. They hanged and then decapitated her right in front of Yenel, ending her suffering but leaving her husband with the unimaginable trauma of witnessing her final moments. With Christina gone, the gang turned their brutality toward Yenel. They stabbed him repeatedly, cut flesh from his back, and continued their torture, still demanding the money they believed was hidden somewhere. Yenel held firm, not out of strength, but simply because there was no money to give. Realizing they wouldn't find what they came for, the attackers hanged Yenel, finally bringing his suffering to an end. But even then, their depravity wasn't finished. They dug a shallow grave in the backyard, placed the couple's bodies inside, set them on fire, and buried them. The gang thought they had covered their tracks, but their horrific acts wouldn't stay hidden for long. The aftermath and arrest. So, what happened next? How does a story like this end? With justice? Or just another layer of horror? On January 9, just 2 days later, neighbors began to worry after not seeing Christina and Yenel for a while. Someone reported them missing, and soon the police received an anonymous tip. The authorities acted quickly, and within a short period, Daniel Santos NZ and Carlos Albergo Neres were arrested, along with the 3 teenagers involved. When the gang members were apprehended, they were found with weapons and a stolen car, both of which had belonged to the Armals. During interrogation, it didn't take long for the teenagers to break. They revealed the horrific details of that night, leaving investigators and the entire community in shock. Detective Santos, who led the investigation, stated that everyone was appalled by the vicious and senseless killing of a couple who were known as quiet, upstanding individuals in their neighborhood. The gang faced multiple charges, including robbery, torture, murder, sexual assault, and illegal possession of weapons. But could any sentence truly bring justice for the horrors they committed? Justice, or something like it. Did the gang members face real justice, or did they escape it in some twisted way? The teens involved in the crime received sentences of 3 years in juvenile detention, a punishment many felt was far too lenient for the horrors they took part in. However, the sentencing for Daniel Santos NZ and Carlos Albergo Neres, the two main perpetrators, remains unclear. There are few records detailing their exact sentences, leading to speculation and frustration among those who follow the case. Many believe they deserved far harsher penalties for the sheer brutality they inflicted on Christina and Yenel. But an unsettling video from prison later surfaced, offering a strange twist. The video showed Daniel and Carlos being humiliated and beaten by fellow inmates. The prison justice system is known to have its own way of dealing with those who commit heinous acts, and the disgust their crimes inspired meant they became targets themselves. In the video, both men were forced to humiliate each other, a grim example of prison retribution. Even within prison walls, there was no escaping the consequences of their actions. But whether this provided true justice for Christina and Yenel is a question that remains unanswered. The case of Christina and Yenel Armal serves as a harsh reminder of how greed and cruelty can drive people to unimaginable acts. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers that can lurk even in places that feel safe and secure. What began as a simple, quiet life ended in horror, all because of an innocent conversation that led to a twisted plot. If you found this story as shocking as I did, and if you want to see more content like this, please like the video, leave a comment, and follow my channel for more stories. These are stories that need to be told, not to celebrate the horror, but to remind us all of the importance of compassion and justice. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and stay compassionate.